Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. In this video, we're going to talk about the great city Babylon the Great. We're going to talk about whether or not it's America. Jeremiah 50 and 51 seem to indicate that maybe it is. We're going to talk about the towers in some of these scriptures. The towers also references to the lady, references to liberty, references to the two walls or the two towers. We're going to go into some of that. We'll go into Zechariah's flying roll, the nuclear missiles, and then we're going to talk about the 10 plagues of Egypt and how that ties into the asteroid impact. We're also going to go into the 70 years that are in Isaiah 23, Jeremiah 25, Jeremiah 29, and also Daniel 9. Okay, so in Isaiah 23, it says, "Behold the land of the Chaldeans. They set up the towers and he brought it to ruin." So we know Chaldeans is a term for those who lived in Babylon. Right here in Ezekiel 23, it says the Babylonians of Chaldea. And we know Babylon the Great is the name given to the great city in the last days that sits on the beast, the one world government, which sits on all 7 continents and reigns over the kings of the earth. So that's a complex study. We talk about that in the video called The Dragon, the Beast, and the Harem. It's linked below. But it looks like this is the great city right here. Everything in purple is dominated by the Abrahamic religions who worship the Lord of the Old Testament. So the Bible tells us right here that the Lord of the Old Testament is the beast. And that makes sense because Exodus 6 tells us that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not know God by that name. And we found out recently that the earliest Israelite inscription of the word Yehovah was found around the same time the first phase of the beast rose up. So here in the final phase of the beast that we're in now, the majority of the world are worshiping that false god that was created by the beast government. So that seems to be why the texts say the God itself is the beast, because the God is actually the government itself. So the majority of the world worship Yehovah, over 50%. And Yehovah is the false god created by the beast government. And again, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not worship that God. The texts seem to have been altered. We talked about that before, and actually we've proved it, because if they did, the texts say that they didn't know God by that name. And if that's true, then why is that name all throughout the book of Genesis? The only explanation is they altered the text, that the texts were altered by the beast, and Jeremiah 8:8 seems to confirm that. But we've talked about all of that before. The point here that we're looking at is that the great city, Babylon the Great, sits on that beast that controls all 7 continents. The beast government who is Yehovah. So these people here, the Abrahamic religions, are worshiping a make-believe God that is and was the government itself. They actually worship and pray to the government unknowingly, the world government, the UN. And that's why the texts say all the world will worship the beast. Okay, so this appears to be Babylon the Great. It sits on the beast that rules the world over 7 continents. It's called the Great City. This is where the texts tell us the asteroid will hit. And that really seems to be the larger point. The asteroid, it says, will hit the Sea of Babylon, which would appear to be the Atlantic Ocean. So this place called Babylon the Great is also called Egypt and Sodom, because the fire and the brimstone will rain down there. That's the reference to Sodom, the meteorites. And it's also called the land of the Chaldeans, because we know the Chaldeans were of Babylon. So these are the codes in here. The truth in we know the truth in the Bible is in the codes, the numerical codes and the literary codes, the words and phrases. And it can only be understood by a creative mind, a human creative mind. It cannot be understood by what Gabriel called the criminal or the wicked one. That's what Gabriel said in Daniel. That's also what Jesus implied as well when he said that they asked, his disciples said, why do you speak in riddles? And he said, it's not because this information's not for everybody. It's not for the adversary. So it's all written in code. The truth in the Bible is in the code. So you follow the codes, you find the truth. Okay, so here are some of these codes having to do with Babylon the Great. The land of the Chaldeans is one code. It says they set up the towers and he brought it to ruin. So let's look at that first. Some of the books that talk about the Chaldeans. So we'll start with Jeremiah 50. And we're just going to read through some of the highlighted points, but you can pause to read the whole thing if you want. It says the word that the Lord spoke against Babylon, against the land of the Chaldeans. Babylon is taken out of the north. There comes up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate. In those days, the children of Israel will weep. Okay, so before we go on, the children of Israel are the children of Jacob, the smooth one, the Homo sapiens, which is basically all of humanity, that crossed over the Red Sea about 125,000 years ago. So remember that Elohim created humanity. By the way, we talk about this in the video called History of Israel, I think Prehistory of Israel. But that's what Genesis 1 says. It says the Elohim created humanity. The Elohim created the paradise over the whole earth, not just Eden. The Elohim set the moon in motion around the earth at the perfect distance so it would perfectly eclipse the sun, not too close, not too far away. And anybody with intelligence would admit that the odds of that occurring randomly are astronomical. It's not coincidence. The Elohim did it. That's what Genesis 1 says, and that makes more sense. So the Elohim created all of humanity and terraformed the whole earth, not just Eden. It was Yehovah who cultivated Eden. So that was something different, Genesis 2. But when the texts say God's people, it's talking about all of humanity. That's the point. Israel, which is the children of Jacob, the smooth one, who came out of Africa. So Israel is all of humanity. Okay, so it says in those days when Babylon falls, basically, the children of Israel will weep. In other words, humanity will weep. My people, humanity, their shepherds have caused them to go astray. All that found them have devoured them. They were lied to, made to worship some false god, made to think they were second-class citizens to those who claim to be Jews but are really the synagogue of Satan. Revelation tells us that. Jesus said the same thing. Jeremiah 50 goes on, remove out of the midst of Babylon. So we're talking about the purple area right here. Remove out of the midst of Babylon. Go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans. Be as the he-goats before the flocks. I will cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north. So again, the nation from the north. Chaldea shall be a spoil. It shall not be inhabited. It shall be wholly desolate. Her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down in the time of harvest. Okay, so it says it will be a country in the north that will be responsible for this event. And then it seems to be a nuclear war that happens after the asteroid hits. And that shouldn't really be a surprise at this point, because we know the UK is the dragon who gave power to the UN beast. Both UK and France founded the UN. And the UK owns Canada right here in the north of the United States. And then we have Russia over here in the north. So the texts tell us after the treaty, the world treaty, the government who comes in peaceably, the UN, will work deceitfully. So the covenant was the nuclear non-proliferation treaty that practically the whole world has signed at this point. But unfortunately, it says, it implies in the text that they have no intention of honoring that treaty. It's all over in the text. It talks about the burning of Babylon, this area right here. It's going to burn by a nuclear event. Part of that tribulation is caused by the asteroid impact, and the other part of it is due to the nuclear event. That's what the texts are telling us. Okay, so Jeremiah 50 goes on. It says Babylon will be cut off in the time of the harvest. Okay, so the harvest is the time of the asteroid impact. We've talked about that as well in other videos. It's also known as the day of wrath or the day of the Lord. And we now know this hell, quote unquote, or lake of fire that occurs seems to occur sometime within 3.5 year period of tribulation after the asteroid hits. So hell, quote unquote, is the nuclear event that burns those that are in Babylon. So it's confirming here in Jeremiah 50 that the fall of Babylon will occur in the time of harvest, in the time of the harvest. So that's another code. It's talking about the end time. Then it also confirms there will be a rescue at that time. It says, I will bring Israel again to his or their habitation. They will be satisfied. And that's interesting because where is humanity's habitation? It's the earth. So it's saying on one level, I will bring humanity again to the earth. And that's confirmed in Revelation as well. This is a timeline right here based on the study of the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets and plagues. And also the study of quote unquote hell. It's the texts are telling us that after they're rescued, the humans are rescued from this event that no flesh survives from, they will return to the earth after that tribulation. So after that asteroid impact and nuclear event that we're told in Matthew 24 destroys all flesh, so that's the purpose of the rescue right there, to preserve humanity. So they're rescued, then they are returned to the earth after 3.5 years. That's what the text tell us. And that's what Jeremiah 50 seems to be confirming. I will bring Israel again to his or their habitation, and they will be satisfied. In those days, I will pardon them whom I reserve. So again, that's talking about humanity. And then it says, the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken. Babylon become a desolation. So that hammer, again, may refer to the asteroid. And then it says, I have laid a snare for you, O Babylon, and you were not aware. This is the work of the Lord in the land of the Chaldeans. Okay, so who is the Lord? It's Yehovah the beast. So the word Lord here means Yehovah, which Hosea tells us clearly is the beast, which is the world government. And the word host here, Lord God of hosts, that means army. So it's saying the world government army. That's what it seems to be saying. It says it laid a snare for Babylon, and they didn't know. It will kindle a fire in their cities. But again, it confirms here that the true God, the real living God, the Elohim or El Shaddai, will make a rescue at that time also. Because it says the voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babylon will declare the vengeance. So they're going to watch it. They're going to see it happen. Okay, but how do we know for sure that the beast is the one that is doing this, that is kindling the fire, causing the burning of Babylon? Because Revelation 17 tells us that the 10 kings of the beast are the ones who burn Babylon. That's how we know. And Zechariah 14 clarifies that it's a nuclear weapon that causes that burning of Babylon. It says, this shall be the plague that the Lord, again, this is the word Yehovah, and we're told it's the beast. So it says, this shall be the plague that the beast basically will smite all the people that fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And then Zechariah 5 says this curse is the quote-unquote flying rolls. And we talk about this in more detail in the video on hell. It's linked in the description below this video. But these are some of the points that Zechariah mentions. Zechariah says it is, of the flying rolls, that it is the curse that will go over the whole earth. It will destroy the house of the thief who swears falsely by God's name. Again, that's the beast pretending to be God. The house of the beast covers all 7 continents. That's why it says it goes over the whole earth. Then we talked about the measurements of the flying roll. It resembles a nuclear armed missile. And Zechariah says it's the plague that burns off their flesh as they stand on their feet. Okay, I have to stop the video right here. The link to the whole playlist and part 2 is below.